Namaste. Welcome, beautiful souls. Today, I am here to share with you some tips, some strategies for working with oracle decks. Oracle decks that appear to have a system. There is something going on in the deck beyond doing single card draws, and I'm going to share with you 5 or 6 different decks that have systems and how I might approach them so I could get to know the decks better and make what seems like quite an onerous project more accessible. Okay, so that's the strategy for today. Hi, everybody. I am Sadhana. Welcome if you're new to my channel. Thank you for being here. And if what resonates with you today makes sense, please be sure to give the video a thumbs up. I really appreciate your support. Welcome, Clevis and Donna. And so let's dive right into the cards because that's why we're here. I'm going to start today with a deck that is newer to me, and that is the Canton G Oracle. And I will show you the front of the guidebooks, and I do have them on the table. The Canton G Oracle is a deck. Hello, Akale Sunflower. Welcome. Lydia, namaste. By Laura Zispan, who some of you that name may be familiar. She is the creator of the Luminous Void Tarot. And the writer of the guidebook, which is excellent, by the way, you can see her name there, is Ray Diamond. Okay. Now, this first approach to working with an oracle deck is to pull out a piece of the deck that is a part of the system. So on this day, March 10th, we are 3 or 4 days past the full moon energy. And part of the energy of this deck, the way that it is organized, is around the lunar cycle. And so in the very front of the guidebook, if I scan through archetypes 32 to 35, pertain to midsummer and 3 to 4 days after the full moon. This is a more relaxed form of full embodiment, a time of being established in the world and maintaining your outward flow of energy in ways you enjoy. The bird finds its mate, and together they build a nest. And so these are the 4 archetypes that are connected with this particular phase of the moon. So what I might do is to simply pull out these 4 cards and work with them over this couple of days. And I know we're quite a bit past it, but I would work with a section of the deck as it is intended with the lunar cycle. And, you may find correlations, correspondences, there may be synchronicities, the messages may be more potent if you're working with cards that are relative, as the deck creator intended, to the time of the lunar cycle. Okay, so this is one of my suggestions. Now, while this deck is on the table, I have another suggestion that I'm not going to spend too much time on because I have oodles of videos on deck combinations. I am presently, I ordered the Architect's Tarot. And this is one of the tarots that Ali Man made me do it. So after I started working with the Ali Man Tarot and selected my 78 cards for the Ali Man, there were a few decks that I wanted to purchase. And some of them I learned that the Ali Man himself, Dane 7 Dane, actually altered them, so they're not the same as the cards in the deck. But one, I was very intrigued with the Architect's Tarot, and this just happened to be on my table. And as I was looking at it and playing with the Canton G today, I thought, this is a very, well, for two reasons. These decks might be able to have a conversation with each other. One is that they are both watercolor decks, and I find that paint medium tends to work really well. If I'm working with watercolor decks, I tend to not mix my mediums. So that is one. The color palette is very similar. There are a lot of greens as well in the Architect's Tarot. I will be doing a walkthrough and a first impressions of this deck next week on Wednesday, if you're interested. However, the Canton G Oracle is very liminal. It's very liminal. And the Architect's Tarot is through the mind, the lens of an architect. But the more I am spreading these cards out and try to figure out what's going on in this deck, the architect, the creator of this deck, seems to be very much lost in a different kind of liminal space. And so I was thinking, wow, maybe these two decks would have a very powerful there might be a great combination. Okay. So my first suggestion is to simply work with cards that correspond to the present time, whether that is a moon cycle, whether that is a part of the moon cycle, whether that is a season or so forth. I'm going to give you another example here. This deck that is it's a very old deck. I'm sure many of you have this one. This is the Moon Oracle, which is another great deck for working with lunar cycles. So what I did was actually my daughter helped me this last half hour pulling out a bunch of cards for you. I pulled out the card for the present moon mansion, and we'll look at these in a moment. The goddess that is corresponding to this part of the lunar cycle, and the phase of the moon, the disseminating, waning water moon, because I'm going to work with this afternoon because the moon around 4 p.m. is shifting into Scorpio. So that's why I'm choosing this particular card. So what I would do is to pull out the relative cards pertinent to the lunar cycle and use these to start my inquiry, to start my journaling. I may throw some tarot cards down as well too, but I think working with these cards, you can call them topic cards, significators, anything like that, it's a great way to find focus. And I'm all for focus in readings. One of my great pet peeves is, and a lot of, and I'm not judging in any way, but some people say, I just want a general. And generals are very, very difficult. What is the energy of today? Again, a very open-ended question. And so I like to have a focus. Okay. So if we go to, for example, Mansion 27 is from 4.17 Pisces to 17.08 Pisces. Tells us it's ruled by Neptune and the moon. A Buddha-like figure floats, legs crossed, in an attitude of meditation and serenity. His face is painted with a symbol of yin-yang. At his waist is the symbol of transcendence. And it goes on, and it talks about the correlation with this particular decan of Pisces. So you could use it simply as through the artwork, inspiring a time of the month. Or you could also use this deck as a study deck, much like I have been doing with my Thoth inspired series. So the Thoth inspired series, if you're not following, is a members feature on my channel. And I am going through not only the Thoth deck and Thoth inspired decks, but also using plenty of Rider-Waite decks as well too, and looking at the cards in relation to their astrological associations. And I find this really takes the reading of tarot and oracle to a whole other level. And it's one of the things that I really like about the Moon Oracle. I have another suggestion for this deck as well too, and that would be to simply use this if you were, and I don't know what your intention may be, but we were working with uh, Empress energy, Queen energy in Tarot Foundations the other day, and I shared an article that Mary Beth had shared with us. And what we were doing was taking an exercise to take all of the goddesses that were in this article and see if we could match them up with the queens in the tarot. So that might be one reason to pull out all of the goddess cards and work with them. You know, it can inspire study and deeper understanding. Perhaps you were having trouble with some association with the queens, and so you get a goddess deck and you work with those cards and see if you can deepen your understanding in the mythological correspondences. And also, I'm all for expanding mythological references because I really think it helps, especially if you're reading for others, to have those sorts of energies at your fingertips should you need them, because sometimes it's really important to depersonalize a reading and take it to a fairy tale level or a goddess level. Okay, so those are a couple of things I might do with the Moon Oracle. And I will have that out tomorrow. It is one of the decks I will have on the table. So tomorrow there is, and the thumbnail is on my channel right now, but it will be hidden. I am offering a course called Tarot Through the Planets, and this is being offered as mini workshops. And tomorrow we're going to look at moon energy, the phases of the moon, lunar deities, and we're going to look at the cards associated with the moon in the tarot, the cards of Cancer, the cards with decanic minors associated to the moon. We're going to look at the correspondences of the High Priestess to all of these cards. We're going to look at the High Priestess and the Chariot and see what we can bring in there. So this is a 3-hour YouTube chat. And if you want to join the live event, you need to register for this through my website. Okay. I want to say hi. Sorry, I didn't say hi to everybody. So Clevis and Donna, welcome. Lydiane is here. Maharet, hello. I am I'm sorry, I forget your name. B. Is it B? Please help me. Welcome. Nice to have you here. It's been ages since you've been on my channel. Donna, did I say hello to you? Hannah, welcome to Hannah. Who else has graced my channel for this live chat? You guys are having a great little chat here. Okay, if I've missed you, I apologize. Okay, shall we carry on? There are a lot of cards on the table. Now, working with an oracle deck that has a system is a little more challenging than using an oracle deck for single pulls, single draws. Many of these oracles I have done a video on, and I will endeavor to link those videos later once I update all the decks below as well too. The Toolku Oracle. I have a video as well as an interview with Carla on my channel. And in this particular Oracle deck, there are a few different ways to work with it. And this Oracle deck, the cards are assigned one of the 5 symbols. So Chinese medicine, we have wood, air, water, earth, and fire. And this is much like I would do with a chakra deck if I was getting to know a chakra deck. Bear with me, I will find the cards. My first inquiry is this, and I don't know, we all have different trainings, different teachers, depending on if you have trained in, done some training with the elements. We may have different correspondences of the elements. And I have pulled out here all of the water cards, and they are Thokcha, Vesica Pisces, Shiva Shakti, Mirror, Tatwam, Moksha, Vishuddhi Chakra, Lilith, Raven, and Ritam. So my first process here, there's a reason that I want to study the water cards. Perhaps this is a particular element that is pertinent in my, it's my self-study. I want to work with moving a particular emotion. And so I pull out all the water cards. Now, one of the first things I do is I have a look at the cards that I'm not familiar with the meaning to see if I resonate with the elemental association. There are a few decks that have elemental associations. What's coming to mind right now are Rebecca Lefebvre's decks. So in the larger cards, Avec la Vie, I'm sure you know her decks. I've shared them all on my channel. Her cards all have elemental associations. The Sacred Bee Oracle has elemental associations. And so one of the things that I like to do is to see if I resonate with the creator's choice. And so I want to go through, and I wasn't planning on pulling out this deck, but you can see, because if I'm working with the element intentionally and the cards corresponding to that element, maybe one of them just doesn't sit well with me because of something I've learned or something that I've studied, then I might pull that card out. So there's a process of working with that element, getting familiar with the unfamiliar cards, and then using those cards for a period of time in a daily draw or weekly journaling, and working with, just much like I said with the other decks I shared with you, working with a component, intentionally working with just a component of the deck, right? Just a part of the deck. And in this way, it's easier to get to know the nuances of what is going on in the deck rather than working with the whole deck. Okay. It can help. It can help. Now, what do I do if I don't agree with an association? I probably am not going to mark up the cards and write on them, but I may make some notes in my in my notebook or my journal. And I think this is also part of my own self-study and learning to grow with a deck and deepening my awareness. I also might take that and do a tarot reading. So what is it about this card? What is it about this particular element that doesn't sit right with me? So rather than just dismissing it as an intellectual thing, there may be something deeper that I can work with. Okay. All right. So Sacred Bee Oracle has elements, and the deck that's on the table right now is the Toolku. The Toolku. This is a very beautiful deck. I was so inspired by this deck. I don't know if you know this deck. Each of the cards has a, what's the word? Not a charm, oh my goodness, I can't even think of the word. Anyway, I went to the website of the creator and I purchased this one. Yeah. I need to leave this one out. It's a very amazing body of work. Okay. Shall we go to, and by the way, I never have this many oracles out on my table. You were talking about resonating with associations. Do you ever find that deck creators have tried too hard to make oracle or tarot decks into more than they are? Really good question, Donna. Really good question. Yes. Yes. And so I touched on this last week. So last week I was sharing with you oracles that don't have a system. And one of the things I said to you was that I remove the chakra cards from the alchemical tarot. I took it off the table. I removed the chakra cards from soul trees. And I felt that in removing the chakra cards, the oracle deck could breathe a little better. It was easier for me to work with. And this is a personal thing as well, too, because I have studied and taken so many immersions and worked chakra sadhanas. And so I need to let the deck, those soul trees, be what they are in the moment. I don't need cards telling me what chakra I'm working with. So that is an example, I think. Yeah. The other thing as well too, Donna, and I think this is, and I want to respect deck creators because we don't know the whole backstory with deck creators, but sometimes I find they, and so let's take the Akal Pritam Self-Love Oracle. Okay. I have done Amulet. Yes, Amulet. Thank you very much. That's the word I was looking for. And thank you, Clevis. I'm sure you know the one. I interviewed a call as well too. And I shared the gorgeous journal that goes with this. This is a tiny little deck, and it is so beautiful, and the corresponding journal is absolutely gorgeous, and it's all about self-care, taking time for yourself, nurturing and nourishing. However, Many I agree with, but there are an abundance of cards where I don't agree with the chakra association. And one of the questions I asked a call was where she had done her training. Had she spent time at a particular ashram, or where she had studied yoga? And she said that it was all intuitive. It was all intuitive. So that just didn't sit particularly well with me. And so when I work with that deck, I don't really work with it as a chakra deck. And I work with it simply as a self-care deck. So, it's a really good question that Donna asks. And I think sometimes we need, for one reason or another, we need to simplify a deck. And one of the ones I'm going to show you in a minute, I've done something similar with that because it doesn't work for me. Okay. Golden Dawn lost me at the Chariot being associated with Cancer just because both were sevens. Yeah. And I don't think I don't have time to expand on this, Donna, right now, but yes, I definitely get that. Okay. You'll need to expand on that. I'm not sorry, I didn't see when that came up, so I'm not sure what that's in reference to. Okay. Let's go to the Weaver's Oracle. We were talking the other day about menopause, post-menopause, and I was saying that I would like to do a chat talking about strategies, healing energy for working with working with menopause. Okay. And as I was pulling out the Weaver's Oracle, which is another oracle that is full of system, full of structure, I was glancing through the Tribe of the West. The Tribe of the West Weavers are linked by their relationship to waning light, hidden weather, secret dusk, black moons, scars, and wounds, the edges of things, fire spells, drum mysteries, shape shifting, warrior teachings, menopausal rites, the safekeeping of old magic, creating sanctuary, remembering wisdom, preserving stories, strengthening ceremony, the energy of autumn equinox, and the Dead Souls Festival. That's a lot of associations. So what I was thinking is that I would use some of the weavers of the West to expand on and inspire part of that discussion. And so let's suppose this was something you were working with. Maybe you were writing, and I've often thought of writing a book on this topic. You're probably tired of hearing this. I have a lot of books that never have been completed. But what I was thinking is using, as if I were writing a book, I may use these weavers as guardians of my project. Or if I were teaching a session or a workshop, a yoga workshop on this particular topic, maybe I would use the weavers of the West to inspire conversation. And then I may share some of their their tales, some of their stories to help help others with their journey. So let's go to 25 Storm just for fun. And as you look through this oracle, all of the drum, you can see the things that are highlighted: autumn dance, autumn song, autumn prayer. And you could scan through each of the keywords. Hello, something. Why is that going? Oh my goodness, have I been echoing the whole time? I apologize. I just heard my voice. Okay, something funny is going on. Okay, I'm just going to carry on. So I'm going to use or scan through the book to look for the relative cards. So I read in the introduction that this particular tribe is associated with menopause, and then I'm going to go through each of those cards and perhaps choose a few that more specifically work with that particular topic. And one of the beauties of this deck is that we have a lot of different ways of working with it. Okay. If you're um, not familiar, most people know this deck, but this deck not only has tribes, but it has clans. It also has directions. And there may be something inspiring that is an ancestral link for you as well too. And personally, with this deck, I like to limit the number of cards I'm working with. I know some people pull a weaver a year. That is how deep and complex this particular deck is. But I think if you're using it to study, you may work with a particular clan or a particular tribe for one reason or another, as I described, for 6 months or a year. And I find that limiting the number of cards I work with to be really, really helpful. All right. And then I was talking about pairing the decks. So then I have my card that I'm working with, and then I'm going to find probably a tarot deck that resonates with this energy. And there are several different ancestral sort of energies I work with. But if I were working with the idea of um, menopause, then I might sit outside of my tarot cabinet and think about the crone energy, a life cycle energy, and choose a tarot deck that resonates with that particular theme as well too. Okay. Hmm. I feel so grateful to have all these absolutely amazing cards at my fingertips. White cloth. What does that mean? That means I am going to pull out the transparent oracle. I participated in Emily Carding's workshop, both for the transparent tarot and the transparent oracle recently. And I have to say that that really helped me. Now, I am going to be doing a chat with Jonathan Daly, who is a big fan of Emily Carding as well too. And I'll make sure that I share it. I'm going to be on Jonathan's channel and we're going to talk about the transparent oracle. And I definitely will be doing a couple of videos on the transparent oracle myself, because I think both the tarot and the oracle have something really brilliant to offer about them. Okay. I have a lot of the decks that I've been sharing with you today have directional associations, north, south, east, and west. And depending on which hemisphere you live in, depending on um, what you have studied, your associations with directions may be different. The transparent oracle is one deck that is based on direction. And this is not only north, south, east, west, but also the star realm as well as below. And for Emily, below, so when I was doing my shamanic training, below referred to Pachamama, the creepy crawlies, all the animals of the earth itself. But for Emily, the below also is referencing our ancestors and our roots. Okay, so the and then the seventh direction within. So this is a very amazing body of work that includes these 7 directions, and each of the directions has a gateway, and the gateway of the east is spring. And I think if I were to work with, and this is something I might pull out for, I'm just going to grab the wildwood here. Um, I may pull this out for spring equinox and work with these cards that first week of spring equinox and to see what messages come through. So the gateway of spring is the east. And then each of the, I just need to spread them out here. Each of the directions has a weather element, and the element for the east is wind. And the element is air. This is another layer that Emily does differently. And I think it is it's an important layer in getting to know a deck. So for me, the spring is associated generally with fire. Air is associated with the autumn. And I know we all have different associations. So the only way I'm going to get intimately familiar with this deck is to work with this group of cards. And I'll show you the rest for the East. The time of day is the dawn. Right? So the sun rises in the East. Each of the directions has a landscape. And the landscape is the mountains. And then there are animal totems for each of the directions. And this is one of the aspects that you may have to sit with. The element is air for spring, right? So I'm getting this in my head. The totems are butterfly and eagle and wren, no, blackbird. Where's blackbird? Blackbird. Blackbird. Eagle, I shared with you, and wren. Yes, wren. As I was sitting with this deck, I thought how beautifully this would work with the Wildwood Tarot. And so what I did was I pulled out all of the, what do you call them? The court cards for the Wildwood Tarot, because I know that a lot of the animal totems were similar. And so my intention, I'm thinking, is to sit down and do a deep, this is going to be personal until I get to know it, dive. And I really don't need to do another year in the wildwood, but at each of the equinoxes and solstices, to have a look at the correspondences between these two decks, because I think I'm going to be able to work with them together beautifully. Emily Carding also studied with John Matthews, and John Matthews was her inspiration for the Tarot of the She. So it would make sense that a lot of this energy crosses over. So I'm very excited to do that. So what I'm suggesting here, and I feel like this is Sylph, so there is an elemental for each of the directions. And then there are new cards in the second edition. And I did not pull out this card. So there's an archetype, and the archetype for the air is the sage. So in dissecting a rather complex oracle and taking my time with it piece by piece, because I know my library really well, I'm able to bring in decks that make sense and to help deepen my understanding, not only with the oracle that I'm getting to know, but as well as maybe finding new correspondences with that little bird. So the wren I know is on the rock in the hermit card, the hooded man card, and the wren is also one of the pages, the page of arrows, I believe. And so it might be really, really interesting to look at those three cards together to see what I could learn. I don't know. I'm a bit of a card nerd, and I find these correspondences invaluable to deepening my understanding not only of the tarots that I'm working with, but the oracles. Right. So this is part of this journey is knowing your decks and wanting to know them more, the magic and the mystery of your decks. How are we doing? How are we doing for time, by the way? All right. Lydia Ann, and we're grateful to feel the high respect and honor you put on these decks. Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for that nice feedback. I want to show you what I was talking about. So in the Wildwood Tarot, the suit of arrows is also connected with the spring. And it would, what I'm saying here is it makes sense that Emily associates the spring with arrows because this was a very influential teacher for her. Um, and just bear with me a second here. Okay, so here is the hooded man. Now, I know the hooded man is not connected with the spring. The hooded man is on the other side of the wheel of the year. And I'm just going to open the wheel so I get this right. Oh, that's the wrong deck. There's the wheel. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna go to the hooded man. So the hooded man is at winter solstice. That is his time of year. And the other wren, I believe, is just before Beltane. Just before Beltane. And part of this exploration, part of this study is to not only look at the animal totem itself, but to look at the correspondences across the wheel of the year. It's really beautiful. Okay. I want to go to Donna's comment here and respond. Yes, the answer is yes. In the Golden Dawn system, so if you are working with any tarot deck that is based on the Tetragrammaton, Yaghe, the first element is fire. And fire is associated with the beginning of the astrological wheel, the zodiacal wheel, which is spring. And for one reason or another, there are other schools of thought. And this is explained very well in some oracles and not at all in others. And I've had this conversation, so I don't want to repeat too much here, but if a deck creator is shifting the order of the elements from Wands, Cups, Swords, Pentacles, I want to know why. I want to know why. And in the Tarot of the She, Emily Carding does address it, and she talks about why air comes first. And it has to do with the whole idea of thought. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Indigenous people, right? Because fire, or if you go back and think about our ancestors, fire was a very, very basic element, right? It is an element of survival. Everything begins with fire. So there are a multiplicity of associations for fire being the first element, and it being associated with spring. Okay. Um, oh, okay. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. Okay. I did a walkthrough of the glow wood a couple of weeks ago. And to make sense of what I'm saying here, you'll need to go back and look at that glow wood video. And one of the layers of the glow wood that absolutely fascinated me was the concept of um, ha- have any of you read Michener's Hawaii? It was so long ago I read it, but one of the things that really captured me in that book was the book begins with Hawaii before it was Hawaii. So it starts with just the islands. And I remember this part that talked about the abundance of or the purity of the water and how the water in Hawaii is filtered. All this that abundance of salt water is filtered through the rock. Um, I remember reading the beginning of that book multiple times. And when I was going through this book and trying to figure out how I was going to work with the Glowwood Oracle, I have decided that with this particular deck, the piece that makes the most sense to me is to begin at the beginning and to work with the cards in a chronological order. So, first of all, there was rock, and then there was lichen, and then there were mosses. So, my journey with this particular deck is with this layer, which is not even introduced until the very back of the book, but it is the most interesting to me. So I suppose this revelation is kind of important. Uh, you may, oh yes, let me do this one as well too. There may be something that is described at the beginning of a book. I think with oracles that have a system, it is so worthwhile to read the book because I never would have approached the glowwood or been curious about the glowwood in this way. So I haven't started working with it yet, but I'm going to. So I'm going to put away all of the insect cards because the insects aren't the beginning of the story. The beginning of the story is the rocks and the lichens. So that's where I'm going to begin my personal study with this deck. Okay. Yeah, it's really, really fascinating. And it also struck a chord with a level of respect for what's happening in the forests where I am. And I'm starting to look at the life cycle of the forest in a completely different way. Okay. I want to talk about the Shaman's Oracle by Will Kingham and John Matthews. Right. Another deck with system. Okay, this one. You know this one? Um, I did a deep. I did a deep dive. I think it's a really good video of this deck. So if you haven't seen it and you struggle with this deck, please um, take some time to go and find it because it's kind of brilliant. Patting myself on the back. Yeah. All right. So this is another oracle that has elemental and chakra associations. Okay. And when you're very sweet, Donna, when I look at this particular oracle, the element of earth is the ancestors. So our roots, which makes a lot of sense. The indicators are trial, challenge, manifest, power, initiation, breaking out. These are all really important root chakra things. And so that fits beautifully. And so we go from the root chakra to this. Now, this is not, there's no chakras mentioned, I don't think, in this deck. But of course, I have to bring it in. Maybe there is, or maybe, but it goes in a different direction. So the second chakra, the Swadhisthana chakra, is the element of water. And here we have rivers. Rivers are the tribe of hunters, the element of water. And then we have a list of keywords, including boundaries, divisions, journeys, fertility, and emotion. For the most part, kind of makes sense. And then we go to the element of fire, and then air and ether. So the elements correspond to the first 5 chakras: root, uh, Muladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipura, Anahat, Vishuddhi. So it corresponds perfectly to that. And the colors don't, but that's all right, because color associations with chakras are arbitrary, definitely arbitrary. While color does have a frequency, this is another discussion. Now, there are tribes in this deck, much like there are tribes in this deck. And the tribal associations, uh, I like, don't like. So the dancers, rather than being associated with water, they are associated with fire. So when I think of a dancer, I think of flowing energy, movement. And this is a hard one for me. So in working with this deck, I've had to adapt my head around the organization of it. Uh, Shamans are associated with air, and spirit is associated with ether. So I would put shamans at the throat, and I don't know. So parts of this deck don't work for me. So and I do really like there is a spread at the beginning of the book. It's a hand, and I really like this spread. I like the concept of the deck. I like exploring the caves. But what I've had to do with this deck is to adapt some of the correspondences because it doesn't necessarily work for me. And in if I had been only doing single card pulls with the deck, I wouldn't have learned this. You taught jazzercise? Oh my goodness. Yeah, and I get yeah. So we all have our own unique associations with different, right? Different archetypes, different energies. And it's sometimes I find that I see people diving into a deck, doing daily draws, and not paying attention to the structure. And I think it's important to get to know the structure before you ditch the structure. So I want to give the structure a best effort, and then before I work with the deck in a different way. That's hilarious, Donna. Yeah. Okay. So let's do an oracle draw and just kind of end with that for today because I feel like I have cards bouncing everywhere on my table. Okay. Okay. I'm going to need to shuffle. And I'm going to need the guidebook in case it's not a card I am familiar with. One of the things I said to students multiple times is there's no shame in using your guidebook. Um, you can be very familiar and have a great fondness for an oracle, and there may be 4 or 5 cards. You just, and even though you've read it once, you need to pick up the guidebook every time because that particular card is not something that's in your realm. All right. As the moon travels into Scorpio, as we all gather, integrate, and take time to digest the lessons of the waxing aspect of this lunar cycle, I also want to honor that this is the final phase, the final lunar phase of this zodiacal year. Actually, I need to look at that. Let's go. Let's go to the wee moon, shall we? Because the next new moon will be in Aries, right? So yeah, so this is big, right? The energy of this closure. I feel it's a really important time to close something. I subscribe to I don't know what it is. I've subscribed a long time ago, and I get a tarot card in my email every day. And I got the death card today. And just thinking about this now, I think it's really important. And I want to ask myself about closure, about the energy of closure, and what is it important to close out this turn around the astrological wheel. Okay, so I'm going to draw a card from the Toolku in response to that question. But I want to add all of you in here and ask collectively what is the energy that is ready to come to a close this turn around the astrological wheel. Hmm. Element is fire. This is one of the balancing energies, like the Shiva Shakti kind of energy. This is the Yab Yum card. I'm going to read a little bit from the book for you. This deck is based on Tibetan Buddhism. Yeah. So Yab Yum is 45, and the energy is fire. And in this deck, the elemental association is the primary element. And she also says in the guidebook that, of course, there are other elements that are involved. United am I, blissful am I, truth am I. The element is fire, merging in ecstasy, passion, and connection. Yab Yum literally means father and mother in Tibetan. Yab Yum is a depiction of the male Buddha, compassion, and his female consort, wisdom, joined together in the ecstasy of sexual union. Additionally, for Vajrayana Buddhists, the enlightened masculine represents skillful means and relative truth, while insight and ultimate truth are representative of the enlightened feminine. Pictured together, this iconography is a multi-dimensional and powerful symbol that represents the state of perfect, transcendent union and spiritual attainment. The image in the oracle depicts Buddha and consort together in ecstatic embrace, light emanating from their bodies. The Toolku amulet is at the Buddha's crown. If you have drawn the Oracle, transformation and upliftment are afoot. Whether this means you are experiencing new, heart-opening love in your life in the form of intimate partnership, spiritual teachings, or creative endeavors, you are presented with the opportunity to grow tremendously. This speaks to the union of complementary opposites. The new third energy emerging from this union is the one that changes your perception of life. So, if we are to contemplate this as something coming to closure, completion, I want to, the energy of completing a creative project, the energy of giving something your complete attention and raw energy feels very significant here. This card feels abundant, it feels full, it feels so very, very vital. And so, as we get closer to the spring equinox, know that we don't have that many days before that. I'm just gonna, so today is 10th. So we have about 10 days to really bring this to fruition. And so what I want to share with you is that you choose. And I know we all have them. And I was talking about an incomplete book. Well, my book's not going to get finished in 10 days. But I do have a couple of projects. And I'm thinking, yeah, this is something that now requires my masculine, fiery, active effort and energy to bring to completion. It's been given lots of receptive energy, and so now it's time for me to find the balance in that and to let it become whole and complete so that I see synchronicity of something with the completeness of something, with the completeness of this trip around the astrological wheel. I hope you I hope this makes sense where I'm going with this. Being in sync with cycles really does make things easier. Okay. So thank you for hanging out with me today. And I will see some of you tomorrow. I'm really excited about this. And if you please register ASAP so I can send you the documents in advance. Not that you have to get your homework done before, but just so you have them if you want to print them. Um, and this workshop starts at 9 a.m. tomorrow. It's a 3-hour workshop. Okay. For those of you that I won't see tomorrow, have a lovely rest of your day. Namaste.